Old Hollywood wasn't just about glitz, glamour, and perfect endings. Sometimes, the stories were ripped straight from real life. Behind the dazzling lights hid tales of war heroes, forbidden love, shocking crimes, and impossible miracles, all true, all larger than life. These weren't just movies, they were reality rewritten for the silver screen. Welcome to Golden Age Echoes, where truth became timeless cinema. Number 1. The Great Escape, 1963. In 1963, Hollywood brought to life one of the most daring prison break stories ever told, The Great Escape. But what many don't realize is that this film was based on a real event that took place during World War II. The story comes from the Stalag Luft III camp in Germany, where hundreds of Allied airmen were held as prisoners of war. Under the leadership of squadron leader Roger Bushell, these men planned an audacious escape, digging 3 tunnels they nicknamed Tom, Dick, and Harry. The film captured their courage, their wit, and their sheer determination to defy Nazi imprisonment. In reality, 76 men managed to escape through those tunnels in March 1944. But the ending wasn't as heroic as Hollywood made it seem. 73 were recaptured, and 50 were executed by the Gestapo, a war crime that shocked the world. Directed by John Sturges and starring Steve McQueen, The Great Escape immortalized this tragic yet inspiring chapter of wartime bravery. It blended real history with cinematic thrill, ensuring that the courage of those POWs would never be forgotten. Number 2. Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. When Lawrence of Arabia hit theaters in 1962, audiences were mesmerized by its vast deserts, sweeping battles, and mysterious hero. But beneath all that cinematic grandeur lay a true story. The film is based on the life of T. Lawrence, a British archaeologist turned soldier who became a key figure during the Arab Revolt, 1916 to 1918, against the Ottoman Empire. Portrayed brilliantly by Peter O'Toole, Lawrence wasn't your typical war hero. He united rival Arab tribes, led daring guerrilla attacks, and reshaped Middle Eastern history, all while struggling with his own identity and loyalty. The screenplay drew heavily from Lawrence's own memoir, 7 Pillars of Wisdom, giving the film its haunting authenticity. Shot across the scorching deserts of Jordan and Morocco, and directed by David Lean, the movie became a masterpiece of both storytelling and cinematography. Though some details were dramatized, its emotional truth, of one man caught between 2 worlds, remains real. Number 3. The Sound of Music, 1965. Behind the singing hills and joyful melodies of The Sound of Music lies a story born from real-life courage and faith. The 1965 classic, starring Julie Andrews as Maria, was inspired by the true story of Maria von Trapp and the Trapp family singers of Austria. In the late 1920s, Maria was a postulant at Nonnberg Abbey when she was sent to tutor one of Captain George von Trapp's 7 children. What began as a teaching job blossomed into love. Maria married the captain, and together they raised a musical family. But when Nazi Germany annexed Austria in 1938, the von Trapps refused to serve Hitler's regime. Instead, they fled their homeland, leaving behind wealth and comfort to preserve their freedom. The film took creative liberties. The real family didn't hike over the Alps but escaped by train to Italy. Still, their story of love, music, and defiance resonated worldwide. Directed by Robert Wise, The Sound of Music became one of cinema's most beloved films and a symbol of hope during dark times. Number 4. Mutiny on the Bounty, 1935. Long before modern action epics, Hollywood turned to one of history's most shocking sea rebellions, the true story behind Mutiny on the Bounty. The 1935 MGM classic, starring Clark Gable as Fletcher Christian and Charles Laughton as Captain William Bligh, dramatized the real mutiny that shook the British Navy in 1789. The HMS Bounty set sail from England to Tahiti on a mission to collect breadfruit plants. But during the long voyage, Captain Bligh's brutal discipline and harsh punishments pushed his crew to the breaking point. First Mate Fletcher Christian finally snapped, leading the crew in a daring mutiny that overthrew Bligh and sent him adrift in a small boat with loyal sailors. Amazingly, Bligh survived, navigating over 3,600 miles to safety, a feat still studied by sailors today. Meanwhile, the mutineers sought refuge on remote islands like Pitcairn, where some of their descendants live even now. The film won the Oscar for Best Picture, and its story was retold multiple times, but the real mutiny's mix of tyranny, rebellion, and survival remains one of the most gripping tales in maritime history. Number 5. Sergeant York, 1941. Before superheroes filled the screen, Hollywood celebrated a real one, Alvin C. York, the humble Tennessee farmer who became one of America's greatest World War I heroes. Sergeant York, 1941, directed by Howard Hawks and starring Gary Cooper, told his incredible true story with remarkable accuracy. York was a pacifist by faith, reluctant to fight. But when drafted into the U.S. Army, his sense of duty overcame his doubts. In October 1918, during the Meuse-Argonne offensive, York single-handedly attacked a German machine gun nest. Armed with just his rifle and pistol, he killed over 20 enemy soldiers and captured 132 prisoners, an act so extraordinary that military officials at first refused to believe it. Gary Cooper's performance earned him an Academy Award, and the film became a massive wartime inspiration. York himself cooperated with the filmmakers, ensuring that his story remained authentic. Though he returned home a hero, York lived the rest of his life quietly, true to his faith and humility. Number 6. Bonnie and Clyde, 1967. When Bonnie and Clyde exploded onto screens in 1967, it wasn't just a movie. It was a revolution in storytelling, style, and shock. But beneath the glamour and guns lay the real story of America's most infamous outlaw couple, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. During the Great Depression, Bonnie and Clyde roamed across Texas, Oklahoma, and the Midwest, robbing banks, gas stations, and stores. They weren't Robin Hoods, just desperate lovers chasing freedom in a broken world. Their spree turned bloody fast. The Barrow gang killed 9 police officers and several civilians before their violent end in 1934, when they were ambushed and gunned down by lawmen in Louisiana. Directed by Arthur Penn and starring Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway, the film romanticized their legend, rebellious, reckless, and tragically beautiful. It took major liberties but stayed true to the real pair's restless spirit and doomed love. Its shocking violence and sympathetic tone changed Hollywood forever, ushering in the new Hollywood era of realism and anti-heroes. Number 7. The Jackie Robinson Story, 1950. Before biopics became a Hollywood trend, one film stood out for its authenticity: The Jackie Robinson Story, 1950. What makes it truly special is that Jackie Robinson himself played his own role, recreating the struggles and triumphs that made him an American legend. The movie tells the real-life story of how Jack Roosevelt, Jackie Robinson, broke baseball's color barrier in 1947, becoming the first African American to play in Major League Baseball with the Brooklyn Dodgers. Under the guidance of Branch Rickey, Robinson faced brutal racism, death threats, and isolation, yet he refused to fight back, proving his strength through silence and skill. The film was produced just 3 years after his historic debut, making it as close to real-time history as Hollywood ever got. While simplified in parts, the story's essence, courage against prejudice, remained entirely true. Robinson's calm defiance not only changed sports but helped fuel the early civil rights movement. Number 8. In Cold Blood, 1967. When In Cold Blood premiered in 1967, audiences were stunned, not by monsters or fiction, but by the terrifying truth that inspired it. The film retells the 1959 Clutter family murders in Holcomb, Kansas, a crime so senseless and brutal it shocked the entire nation. The killers, Perry Smith and Richard Dick Hickok, broke into the Clutter home believing the family had a safe full of cash. They found nothing, yet still murdered all 4 family members in cold blood. Their capture, confession, and eventual execution became the basis for Truman Capote's groundbreaking nonfiction book, which the film closely follows. Directed by Richard Brooks, the movie was filmed in the actual locations of the real events, even inside the Clutter home and the prison where the killers were held. Actors Robert Blake and Scott Wilson portrayed the murderers with haunting realism, blurring the line between documentary and drama. In Cold Blood wasn't just a movie, it was a mirror held up to America's conscience, showing that true evil doesn't always wear a mask. Number 9. A Place in the Sun, 1951. Beneath the romance and glamour of A Place in the Sun lies a dark true story that haunted America decades before Hollywood turned it into art. The film, starring Montgomery Clift, Elizabeth Taylor, and Shelley Winters, was inspired by the 1906 Grace Brown murder case, one of the earliest crimes to capture national headlines. The real story followed Chester Gillette, a young man from humble origins who fell in love with a factory worker named Grace Brown. When Grace became pregnant, Gillette's ambitions led him toward a wealthy social circle, and away from her. During a trip to Big Moose Lake, Grace mysteriously drowned. Gillette claimed it was an accident, but evidence, including Grace's heartbreaking love letters, revealed a far darker truth. Tried and convicted, Gillette was executed in 1908, and his case became a grim symbol of class, love, and betrayal. Directed by George Stevens, A Place in the Sun transformed that tragedy into a haunting reflection on ambition and moral downfall. Number 10. The Miracle Worker, 1962. The Miracle Worker isn't just a powerful film, it's a faithful retelling of one of the most inspiring true stories in American history. Released in 1962 and directed by Arthur Penn, the movie brings to life the extraordinary bond between Helen Keller, a deafblind girl trapped in silence, and her determined teacher, and Sullivan. The story begins in the 1880s, when young Helen, left blind and deaf after an illness, lived in a world of darkness and confusion. Her parents, desperate for help, hired in Sullivan, a partially blind teacher from the Perkins School for the Blind. Through relentless effort and fierce patience, and broke through Helen's isolation, teaching her to communicate through touch, beginning with that iconic moment at the water pump, when Helen finally understood the word water. Starring Patty Duke as Helen and Anne Bancroft as Sullivan, both actresses won Academy Awards for their performances. The film closely followed Keller's real autobiography. The story of my life. Behind Hollywood's golden glow lies a truth stranger than fiction, real lives, real pain, real glory. These films didn't just entertain, they resurrected history itself. Because sometimes, the most unbelievable stories actually happened. Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe to Golden Age Echoes, where reality meets classic cinema.